Many thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. If you've ever missed the perfect moment because you were stuck fiddling with your camera settings, this one change is going to save you big time. See, most photographers don't realize their camera has a built-in feature that lets you switch to an entirely different shooting setup, of your choosing of course, with the press of a single button. In this video, I'm going to show you how I set it up, why it's one of the first things most pro photographers do with a new camera, and by the end of this video, you'll be shooting faster, reacting quicker, and never missing that perfect moment again. So the problem that this solves, it's a big one. So what makes landscape photography very different? Well, there's many reasons why this genre of photography is different than others, but one thing in particular related to this video is this. So let's take sports photographers, for example. Sports photographers, there's very few things that could run across that basketball court or run across the baseball diamond or the football pitch, whatever the case may be. There's very few things that would occur while a sports photographer is photographing their sport that would cause them to change all of the settings that they have dialed in. I'm talking focus modes, white balance, shutter speed, aperture, ISO, metering modes, everything. I can't think of one thing that could happen that would cause them to need to do that. Wedding photographers, I can't think of one thing that would run across that wedding venue that would cause that wedding photographer to have to change everything about their camera setup. What's another good one? Real estate photographers. I can't think of anything that would run across the living room that would make them have to change from their standard real estate photography camera setup in order to capture this, whatever this thing is. But landscape photography is completely different. We photograph the great outdoors. And what shares the great outdoors with the mountains and the trees and the waterfalls and the streams? Wildlife. It happens all the time where you're photographing, this is a good example right here from the Smoky Mountains just a few weeks ago, photographing these beautiful streams and all this beautiful light back here and this moss-covered rocks, or photographing these huge vistas of these, the Smoky Mountains in the background, had a nice sunset here, and then out of nowhere, you start to see bears start to appear. And if you're photographing landscape photography and a bear or any kind of wildlife appears, like in this scenario right here, this is a completely instantaneous moment right here. If you've ever had to switch from your landscape photography camera setup to shooting wildlife in an instant, is practically impossible. It would take you so much time. And by the time that you have everything dialed in the way you think you need it, whatever you're trying to photograph, whether it's a bird in flight, a bear, whatever the case may be, it's more than likely going to be gone. So to be able to switch to an entirely different camera setup instantly is of the utmost importance. Now, the solution here. Most modern cameras have this functionality built in. It's basically custom recall presets. That's kind of like the generic term for them, but every camera manufacturer calls it something different. I have some notes here. Nikon, what I have here, they're called shooting menu banks. Sony calls them recall custom hold settings. Canon calls them C1, C2, C3 modes, custom modes. Fuji has custom settings as well, similar to Canon. They're just called C1 through C7. And I'm not talking about a button that basically pulls up your metering mode, or one button that pulls up your highlight blinkies. I'm not talking about setting a custom button for one particular feature. I'm talking about being able to switch to an entirely different camera setup. It's of the utmost importance. Now, the way that I have it set up on my Nikon Z8 here is if you can see right here, let me make sure I have this on, this little function button right here. See, my hands, my fingers, naturally rest right here. So I can be shooting in my normal landscape mode, tripod mode is kind of what I call it sometimes, and in an instant, I can hit that top button, rotate my dial, one click, and now I'm in my shooting B menu bank, which is a completely different camera setup than I have for my tripod setup. So the way I have this set up right here is when I switch to shooting menu B, basically that puts in my focus mode to autofocus continuous. I automatically have my ISO at ISO auto, and the ceiling is 3200. It's at aperture wide open, so for this lens, f4. Shutter speed's at 1/640th of a second. I've got my white balance set in. I have my, what else is set in? What did I want to say? Oh, vibration reduction is turned on. I have my autofocus setting on wildlife. So there's so many things, and I'm missing half the things in here, the type of white balance I have set up. There's a lot of different things that I have set up. But if I'm photographing, whatever the case may be, this is a good example right here from the Faroe Islands. Beautiful coastal scenes right here. Here's another very iconic location in the Faroe Islands right here. And then all of a sudden, you have puffins. Puffins start to fly through the scene, or maybe they're static right here. Another one flying. But being able to switch to that mode to be able to capture something like this is absolutely imperative. There is no way that I would have been able to capture specifically the shooting from this type of a scene to this type of a scene. This one right here was a little bit more static, but the puffin was moving. But this one right here, a bird in flight, I would have never in a million years been able to switch from landscape on a tripod to be able to quickly detach my camera from a tripod, one button click, and now I'm shooting in more of a wildlife mode. I would have never been able to capture these moments without this setup. And I can't stress this enough. This is not just assigning one function to one button. This is an entirely different menu setup. So things like, you can go ahead and set shutter speed, aperture, ISO, metering modes, drive modes. That's something else I didn't mention. That's a huge one. I have this set at high speed shooting. I think it's 12 frames per second. You can have all those things automatically dialed in. And with this one button switch or one dial rotation, you can be in that mode. And then whenever that moose walks by or leaves your scene, or puffins or bears, once they're gone, hit that button again, and now you're back in your landscape, your tripod mode. But being able to switch from a tripod mode to a handheld action mode instantaneously is just an absolute game changer. I only started using this a couple years ago. I started using it with my Fuji GFX 100S. I love the way Nikon has this implemented in the Z8. But most modern cameras today does have this functionality built right into it. And if you've never used it before, I would highly recommend you to at least experiment with it. It's super easy to set up. Like I said earlier, Nikon calls them these shooting menu banks. Sony calls them recall custom hold options. Canon calls them C1, C2, C3 modes, and Fuji has those custom settings C1 through C7. So just with a quick Google search, you can figure out exactly how to dial it in for your particular camera. But man, is it super, super helpful. I can't tell you how many times that, well, I should say, I've known about these options for years, but I only set them up a couple years ago. Mainly because I'm a landscape photographer, and how often do I really need to switch to a shooting mode in order to catch something that's happening very quickly? I didn't really think it happened as often, but it really does happen more often than you think. So I thought that was incredibly helpful, and I wanted to share it with you all here today because it's definitely helped me on many of my trips over the last couple of years to capture photos like this right here, these puffins in flight, or these types of bears that just, these types of moments you can't predict, and it's pretty common to be photographing your scene and have something just beautiful walk through it, a moose, birds, whatever the case may be. You know what I'm talking about. So I do hope that information was helpful. And before I do wrap things up here, I do just want to say a big thanks to the sponsor of this week's video, which is Squarespace, who I use for all of my website and e-commerce needs. Squarespace offers a stunning, user-friendly platform to build your website. With their Blueprint AI design system, you can showcase your photography and create a standout online presence with ease. Plus, built-in Squarespace SEO tools help your site appear in more searches, making it easier for the right customers to find you. And if you're looking to sell online, Squarespace's online store feature provides everything you need to sell your physical goods, digital content, or services seamlessly. So if you're looking to start a new website or possibly upgrade your current website, check out squarespace.com/Mark Denney for a free trial and 10% off your first purchase. So I do hope that information was helpful. Like I said, if you've never thought about experimenting with this before, I would highly recommend you doing it. More than likely, your camera already has these features built in. And if you don't think it's something that you would really find much use for, I would encourage you to, if you're bored at the house one day, try and set up an entirely different shooting mode, everything from drive modes to focus modes to aperture, ISO, shutter speed, to metering modes, to focus modes. Try and set all that up in an instant. You'd be surprised how long it actually takes. So to be able to go ahead and dial that in and be able to just hit one button and have it switch to that is super, super handy. And you know, if your camera already has it built in and you pay a ton of money for these cameras today, why not use it? So I hope that that information is helpful. It's definitely something that I find helpful as well. If you have any questions about anything covered in this week's video, please leave those in the comment section below, and I will do my best to get back in touch with you as soon as humanly possible. And if you did enjoy this week's video, if you could, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, and as always, I really do appreciate you carving out a little bit of time to spend it with me here today, and I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.